Um, I want to welcome you all, and we are excited to see your interest in the call for concept notes that we have issued. So I want to extend a warm welcome to all of you for this webinar. Um, this is the first of a two-part series of a webinar that we have organized as the What Works program. And really for applicants who are interested in submitting concept notes for innovation projects. So today's webinar will take you through aspects of the application process, the criteria we are using, the thematic issues we are focusing on in this concept note process. And we have another webinar on Monday that will be focusing more on the technical aspects of violence against women prevention. And so if you're interested in joining that one, that will be talking a bit more about effective approaches to violence prevention, research, and how we approach research in the program. Please feel free to register, and I think we can also share. Should also be able to share with you the links for that registration. And so really, without further ado, I want to get into the presentation. We have 45 minutes or less for this presentation, and then we will have another 45 minutes for Q&A so that people can ask questions. And as Becky said, people can share their questions in the chat. So I will do this webinar with a couple of my colleagues. So my role is just to do the introduction to the program, the what works, and then I'll hand over to other colleagues to take us through the other aspects of the webinar. So next slide, please. So yeah, that's the agenda. As I've said, we will talk about the program. We will talk about the selection criteria for the concept notes. We will talk about how we approach monitoring and evaluation. We will talk about budgeting and costs that are eligible. We will talk about the mechanisms through which we award these grants. We will also talk about do no harm and accountability, and we will share the timelines for the concept notes. Next slide. And so really, what is What Works program? Uh, uh, the What Works is a 7-year initiative that started in 2021 and will end in 2028. And our main aim is to contribute to prevention and elimination of violence against women and girls by generating evidence of what works and building the field of violence prevention with that evidence. We take a multi-stakeholder approach to scale because we are a scale program and we are building on a previous program that was also funded by FCDO that sought to uh, test innovative approaches to violence prevention. And so we build on that evidence to take some of those approaches to scale. And we do this through two large consortia. And as you can see there, we have partners from the Implementation Consortium, led by International Rescue Committee, Social Development Director, Social Enterprise in the UK, Care International UK, Raising Voices, and Breakthrough. And then we have the Research and Evaluation Consortium, which is led by Global Women's Institute, and it's managed by FCDO's Research and Evidence Department. And that one has John Hopkins, Aga Khan University, University of Cape Town, Kenyatta University. Uh, so the Implementation Consortium does the fund management, provision of technical support, accountability, external engagement, and influencing. And the Research and Evaluation Consortium delivers the evidence base on the projects that that are supported through the Implementation Consortium. So that's how we work. Next slide, please. So we know violence against women is possible, and the reason we confidently say that is that from the What Works program that I mentioned, that some of the projects were able to demonstrate that violence against women is prevention is possible because we saw reductions in some of those innovative projects that were tested and subjected to evaluations of up to 50%. And those were implemented between 2 to 3 years. And therefore, we know that we can prevent violence if we use evidence-based approaches. The other thing that we are seeking to address in this program is that we know that prevention is more impactful and more cost effective than response alone. And we know the field of violence against women and girls is growing and continues to grow. There has been a lot of focus on response, and this program seeks to bridge that gap where we want a holistic interventions that uh, go through the continuum of prevention all the way to response, and so that we can amplify the impact. And then the other thing we are seeking to do as a program is that we have proof of concept for effective small scale interventions, like we said from Works One and from other studies. But they are time bound and sometimes they are not designed with scale in mind. And as a scale program, we would want to know, to learn and put out there to the field how we go to scale ethically, safely, accountably uh, to the field of violence against women and girls. Next slide, please. And so this particular call is for innovation concept notes because we have different types of grants, and innovation is the one we are seeking concept notes for. And we define innovation as the development and implementation of new or existing ideas with the transformative ability to contribute impact with potential for future scaling. So again, seeking to address the question around scale, how do we go to scale? So we want to fund those new or existing ideas and test them, and then also build in an element of scale in them. Yeah. Next slide, please. So what are we going to be funding in this window too? So again, to take a step back, so we started in 2021, and in 2022 we issued a call for applications. That was window one. So we've already awarded some projects and they are in progress. And the program was designed to have two windows, and so this is window two. And we have identified some of the areas in which we would want to receive concept notes. And the first one is prevention of violence against women and girls in fragile and conflict affected settings. And this we are paying a particular focus on countries experiencing protracted crisis. And also we are encouraging applications from the MENA region. And so yeah, that's one of the areas that we want to get applications on. The other thematic area is technology facilitated gender based violence, knowing that it's an emerging form of violence and it's still a growing area. And we would want to support building the field of prevention of technology facilitated GBV through supporting interventions that are going to be addressing this particular type of violence. And then we also acknowledge that there is a nexus between violence against women and girls and climate change. And we are also seeking concept notes that can speak to how we address this nexus and how GBV is a climate change issue and how we can actually reduce and mitigate violence against women in climate change interventions. And finally, we have disability commitments as a program, and we also will prioritize our concept notes from women with disability-led organizations that propose to implement interventions in these three thematic areas. I will now hand it over to my colleague Sinead to get into the gist of the selection criteria, what we are looking for, and take us through. Over to you, Sinead. Sinead, are you there?
Hello, I am, and thanks. Next slide, please, Albanis. Can you hear me?
Can you not see it? It's on the screen.
Yeah, it's the application process. Okay, I'll do this one quickly and then we can move to selection criteria. So as Anne has outlined, in terms of the process that we are currently at, this is a two-stage process. At this point, we're only seeking a concept note and a simple budget. We move to if applicants are selected to be invited to submit a full proposal, there would be another process that follows. As Anne outlined, our geographical scope for this funding window has priority towards applications from the MENA region, but we do welcome applications from all of the 3 priority regions for FCDO. So that is the MENA region, the Asia region, and Sub-Saharan Africa. As well as the focus and the kind of priority and encouragement for applications from the MENA region, we are also encouraging applications from organisations working on interventions located in fragile and conflict-affected states, and specifically within protracted crises and not acute crises. So the grant funds that are available for one innovation grant is up to 500,000 GBP, pounds. It's UK aid, and for a duration of 3 years. And then we have another webinar next week that's going to tell you much more about the research evaluation component. But just to clarify that all of the grants that What Works programme funds will have a rigorous evaluation that is undertaken in partnership with grantee partners and our research consortium colleagues to test the interventions, and to clarify that the costs for that evaluation are covered separately, not within the 500,000 here. Brilliant. Thank you, Albanus. So to move to the selection criteria and to tell you a little bit more about what we're looking for as we review your concept notes. So in the selection criteria, we are really looking for concept notes that are innovative, innovative for the violence against women and girls prevention field, or innovative for the region and the context that you're applying for the project to be implemented within, or innovative in terms of the strategy that you're proposing, or it could be all 3 of those. So it's quite open. You know, we're really looking for your ideas on innovations. And then within the concept notes and the questions that are in there for you to answer, we're really looking for you to demonstrate that your ideas are locally led, so they're within your context and they centre women and girls in all their diversities. We're looking for the potential for a clear pathway to scale. Obviously, we have other grants. These ones are innovation grants, but we are looking to see if there is a pathway to scale, and that can be either by reach, you know, proportion of the population covered, or other pathways to scale. We do look for experience of working in an adaptive and continuous learning approach way, because this is innovation. So we recognise the need to be flexible and to you know, to be able to adapt to the context and the circumstances. The intervention design, we are looking for this to be flexible and again adaptable to change. And if you are selected to be invited to submit a full proposal, we will enter into a co-design period with you. So at the concept note stage, we're just looking for you to indicate that adaptability is and is there within the scope of your idea. Interventions we are looking for should address gender inequalities and remove the structural barriers such as unequal gender roles. So for example, gender transformative components within your idea. Obviously, this is UK aid funding, and so we do also look for the concept note answers to demonstrate that you have the organisational capacity to deliver the intervention. So as far as how you would manage the funds that are dispersed and how you would manage the intervention. Another key part of the concept note is we're looking for you to demonstrate the research questions, so the key learning questions that the VUL prevention field is facing and that your project would aim to answer. So that's the evidence generation part that we're looking for. We're also looking for local, obviously it's a locally led solution, so your local knowledge, your national knowledge, and also your ability to engage with local and national networks to influence change in your country, in your context. Next slide, please, Alvanis. Thank you. So in addition, we would also be looking for you to really explain what your intervention is, you know, what it is, but why and how it's innovative, and looking at, you know, what you're looking to find out from your intervention, and specifically how you can do that. So, and by the how, we're looking for what activities would you plan in order to implement your intervention. And again, really looking for you to bring in that contextual knowledge, so that ideally we would be looking to influence the sustained change around prevention of violence against women and girls in your context. And as Anne has highlighted, within this window, one of the thematic areas we are keen to receive applications on is on technology facilitated gender-based violence. So we acknowledge that that can be included if your idea is on technology facilitated gender-based violence prevention, or if it's on one of the other areas. So we're quite keen for the technological and digital solutions to kind of come through in your applications, you know, in terms of whichever intervention it is you're proposing. And then in terms of how you would look at the innovation, the testing of what you would propose, so the different combinations, the different intensities, you know, we're really looking to see that kind of a range of approaches, and again, for it to be open for you to propose your idea. And then specifically on the types of violence that we are seeking applications for, the What Works funding primary focus is on intimate partner violence. It's also on non-partner sexual violence, including SEA, and conflict-related sexual violence, so within the conflict and the emergency settings, as well as we've said, technology-facilitated gender-based violence. And we're also looking for ideas that address that intersection of violence against women and violence against children, including violence against adolescent girls, and also around violence focused in and around schools or in the workplace settings or in other public spaces. And we would also particularly encourage concept notes that seek to impact on more than one type of violence, recognizing that they, you know, often co-occur. Next slide. Thank you, Alvanis. I'm going to hand over now to my colleague, Dima. Thanks.
Thanks, Sinead. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this webinar. So we will speak more about the monitoring and evaluation requirement for this. And on the stage on concept note, we are expecting that the applicant for this concept note should address in that concept note to two or at least two or more of the outcome mentioned in the theory of change for What's Work 2 project. Basically, we have a three outcome, which is a measurable reduction in violence against women and girls, change in practice or policy, and recognition of a women rights organization as essential actors. So we are expecting that your concept note should be addressed at least two of these outcomes to be considered for later stages. Move on, please, Alpanas. Again, and as I mentioned before, this is we're still in the concept note stage, and accordingly, and like as we are expecting like a basic budget and a basic concept note, we are expecting also to have minimum 10% allocation of the suggested budget to be for M&E activities. There's a specific guidance in the website, and you can refer to figure out what we consider within the M&E budget activities. In addition to that, once we move from the concept note stage, and once the shortlisted applicant invited to submit their full proposal, we will work closely, the M&E work team, M&E team will work closely with the shortlisted candidate to work on the code design and refine the theory of change for a project and log frame in the format that match with the FCDO template. Again, in this stage, as we are in concept note, we are not requesting to have this full theory exchange and log frame, but later on, for those who will be in shortlisted, we will have to work together to have the log frame and theory exchange paired to the template. Also, the shortlisted will be working closely with the research consortium to design the research question to test the effectiveness of the intervention. Again, will be only after the shortlisted stage. If there's any question, please, you can use the Q&A for the MLD. Now, I leave it to my colleague for the budget and cost eligibility. Leah?
Thank you, Dima, and welcome everybody. I'm going to speak about the budget and costs eligibility. And typically, the budget has what we call the standard categories. But broadly, there are two types of costs that are recognized by FCDO. So we have what we call the project activities. Project activities are those that are linked to achievement of project outputs. So you can think about things like trainings, if that's what you'll be carrying out. You can think about maybe you'll be buying some materials for whatever interventions that you're carrying out. An example is if this was, for example, a health program, you'd see things like vaccines, wellness packages, and that kind of thing is what would appear under your project activity cost. And then we have what we call project cost, and the project costs are basically running costs, and these are costs that cut across all project activities. Under this headline, you expect to see what we call staffing costs. You will see capital expenditure, you will see monitoring and evaluation costs, advocacy costs, and you'll also have another line which we call other admin costs. Just to say that for this particular project, we are requiring that you put aside monitoring and evaluation 10% of your budget to focus on monitoring, evaluation, and learning, and another 10% will be put aside for advocacy and learning activities. Next slide. Another thing to note when you're working on your budget is that we do have what we call eligible and non-eligible costs. And as a way of an example, just to let you know that some of the costs that are not acceptable under this budget include things to do with advocacy for this bid. For example, if you're doing advocacy for this particular bid, any costs that are related to bid are not allowable costs. Any costs related to contingency, and these are just examples. We would give you a link that will give you more details in terms of what is acceptable and what is not. Things to do with inflation, of course, depreciation, legal fees, especially where they relate to your organization and not specific to this project, would also be not eligible. But project-specific costs around program support costs, administration costs on project delivery, finance, logistics, staffing costs, all those are allowable costs in this project. Some direct costs to do with the program delivery, like technical or advisory expertise that you may hire, that is allowable. Monitoring and evaluation, as we have just discussed, that would also be allowable. Next slide. To speak more about what we refer to as the non-project attributable cost, or NPAC, these are what you refer to as overhead costs, and these are not directly attributable to the project. Think about an organization where you have a head, your head organization is, for example, headed and sitting somewhere else other than where the implementation is taking place. So this would be costs around overall management, administration, governance costs, for example, board meetings and such. And therefore, that's what would qualify to be charged to the program as non-project attributable cost, or what we call NPAC. In terms of how you arrive at NPAC, you will use your 3 years average of audited financial audited financial statements, and the 3-year average is calculated using the cost on governance, support cost, and you come up with a percentage which you will use to charge direct costs on your budget. We will support you by giving you a template that makes this calculation easy. And as you'll see now as displayed, you'll basically pick your admin expenses, pick your support staff costs and your governance costs from your audited financial accounts for the last 3 years, get an average of those costs and work out a percentage which you're going to use to charge to your budget as part of your NPAC or indirect costs. It's not mandatory to have NPAC, and if you're able to recover your indirect costs by charging some of those costs directly, then you do not need to do this NPAC. However, to note that you will not charge those direct costs, your indirect costs in your budget, and go ahead again and capture them as part of your NPAC. So some of the things we look out for when we are reviewing the budget which you submit is to see that there is no duplication of those costs. And another thing to note is that FCDO rather does not allow you to charge a flat rate of NPAC such that you can just arbitrarily come up with a percentage and say that your direct costs are 10%, 2%. It has to be a process that can be explained, and you have to use this template to come up with your rolling average of the 3 years. I don't know whether this is very clear, but what you can do is to post this on the chat so that you can get a better glimpse of this template which we use for calculating NPAC. Next slide. Thank you. And just some overall guidance in terms of how you do your budget, how you structure your budget. One thing to note is that generally your budget has to be in pounds, Great Britain pound, GBP. Therefore, you must convert. If you're working out your budget in your local currency, you have to convert the budget, and you can only submit it in GBP. You will also be accounting in terms of financial reporting in GBP. Therefore, to facilitate exchange and to make it consistent and across the board, we normally use Oanda. There's a website, www.oanda.com, that gives currency exchange rates, and that is where you'll be expected to pick your exchange rate from. The rule is the last Friday is the Friday if you use the transaction date. So if your transaction happens to take place on a Friday, you use the rate of that Friday. If it happens on any other day, you use the preceding Friday's rate to make your conversion. In terms of your budget having a line for what you call contingency, that is not acceptable to FCDO. You will not have a line to cater for exchange rate gain or losses, and therefore you need to manage your exchange rate. If there is a big or a catastrophic event that makes the exchange rate, then we can always go back and have a sitting with FCDO to discuss. Another thing to note is that once we sign off the AGA, once your budget is reviewed, agreed, and the AGA is signed off, the budget cannot be changed. So what you have signed off is what you will work with in terms of your project budget. And if there is anything, again, catastrophic happening, we can have a sit down, but just to know that you'll be expected to deliver within the budget that you have signed against. Another thing to note is that NPAC can also be completed in your local currency and again translated, like we have said, using the Oanda rate that is available as agreed. In case there are any adverse movements that makes delivery very difficult or constrained for whatever reasons, you have to inform your fund manager, and we can have a discussion with FCDO so that we see how we can mitigate that sort of situation. We do allow for the FCDO does allow for budget movements within categories within a threshold of about 10%. Anything and even that needs to be approved by the fund manager, but anything above that would need, again, as all of us, the partner, and even us as fund managers, all going back to FCDO so that we get approval or authorization to make such changes. Thank you. I think that was the last slide on finance. Just to say, we continue to answer the questions that you have on the chat, so keep them coming, and we'll endeavor to answer as many questions as we can. Thank you very much. Handing back to Teresa.
Thank you so much, Leah. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I'll just go very quickly through the grant agreement requirements. As you know, we will be contracting if selected, if your grant is selected, and IRC will sign the accountable grant agreement on behalf of FCDO. The accountable grant agreement is the document that will set out the eligible expenditure, the fund disbursements, the narrative and finance reporting frequency, any due diligence recommendations, the monitoring and log frame requirements, and we'll also have a delivery chain mapping of downstream partners that is part of the AGA, audit requirements, and very thorough risk management and or risk register that you will need to submit quarterly. We'll also have the assets management, communications and safeguarding strategies. So this is just an overview of what the accountable grant agreement will have. So next slide, and I will hand over to Mary. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Teresa. So the due diligence requirements does signal that we are considering potential partnership with you as an entity, and the whole purpose of doing this process is to get a strong understanding of you as a potential partner, and we work together as equals, as IRC and FCDO. We believe that we partners as equals, and therefore we collaboratively identify and analyze any material risks that may emerge in the course of project implementation. So we've got two stages in our due diligence process. Number one is the basic eligibility and what we call the vetting. Technically, this helps us to understand your history, your relationships and reputation in the communities that you serve. We look at publicly available information about the entity. We look at your financial audits, and we run reference checks to organizations that you will have already identified. And to say that we don't commence these processes without requesting you to sign on a form to grant us consent to undertake that. Once that is successful, we move to the next stage, which is the partner project capacity review. And here we will request for documentation from your entity, and we are able to participate in conversations that help us to understand you better in terms of your organizational, programmatic, financial, and operational capacities to help you sort of competently implement the proposed intervention. You may ask yourself then, what if there's a risk that is emanating from those two processes? And the answer is that we will not just drop that potential partnership. We will be very deliberate and intentional in embedding a support plan to help you navigate the risks that perhaps we might have identified. And in so doing, we will be interested to look at your governance, elements of your work, who are the board of directors, how is your organogram curated. We look at your program project quality, essentially looking at your advocacy strategies, looking at your past performance with other donors. We're also interested in looking at your M&E, your processes and your frameworks that pertains to M&E, your staffing, and essentially the capacity in terms of staffing processes and systems in as far as M&E is concerned. On grants management, we look at your history with other donors, the systems and processes that you've put in place as an organization that help you to report to donors in a timely manner, that helps you to manage the resources that has been trusted on you. So we look at that as well. In certain situations, we have applicants that have sub-award management, or they're sort of applying as two entities, and therefore there's a particular entity that receives the fund and then they sub-grant to others. We want to see how that mechanisms will work out for you and your partner. We look at what frameworks you've put in place to ensure that there's compliance and cascading of FCDO compliances to the partner. Again, on finance management and supply chain, we are interested to see the extent to which your systems are thorough and strong enough to support financial accountability, your fiducial elements, the procurement in the sense that there's procurable items within your proposal. So we are keen to understand your internal mechanisms in as far as that's concerned. Again, on your HR, the capacity of your staff, their qualifications, and the extent to which then they're able to support the implementation, a successful implementation of the interventions that you've proposed. Thank you very much. Over to you, Teresa.
Is Teresa here? Okay, then I'll take this up. Why is it my view options? Yeah, principles of do no harm.
Hi.
I believe.
Hi.
Yes,
Annie.
Teresa.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm here. Yes.
Okay.
I was muted. Yes. Thank you so much. So on the side of safeguarding, thank you so much. We as partners, FCDO and its partners, we have our principle of do no harm and that of the zero tolerance. Yeah. And when you are doing your concept note, we also have some questions based on the capacity that you have on safeguarding and the type of policies that you have in place on safeguarding. And if you don't have them in place, how are you intending to safeguard your staff members and that of the targeted beneficiaries? However, at this stage, if you are selected, we move to the other stage to do your due diligence. And in the due diligence, we need to do a verification of your policy. And in that policy, now we comes to the zero tolerance. Both FCDO and What Works Too, we are actually committed to the zero tolerance of incidents that we say do no harm or against abuses of any type. It can be sexual, it can be physical. So when we take the policy, what we go in first is to see your commitment being written in the policy to say, we as an organization, we are committed to zero tolerance of abuse against staff members and the beneficiaries. Hence, there is that commitment and who the policy is covering. That has to be stated very clearly in your policy and your term definitions. So when we have the zero tolerance, is a holder. It's like saying no to certain behaviors that should not be tolerated within the confines of our organization. When there is an incident of safeguarding, you will see that it has integrity issue. Our integrity will fall at the drain. So that is why we are really committed to say we don't tolerate such behaviors. We don't tolerate it. It's a no-go area. So as an organization, as partners, if we are working on the What Works Too project, your zero tolerance policy should be upheld, not only by the management, but also it needs to be cascaded to all your staff members, to all your affiliates with the organizations. They need to know that this is the accepted behavior and this is the unaccepted behavior. If you are ready to work with us, then sign up to the policy. So that's why we are saying, even your contractors, there must be a commitment of zero tolerance in their contract that staff members, they have to sign up to it. When we have these policies, then we are preventing any incident of safeguarding, yeah, or potential of safeguarding issues. We also have our do no harm policy that we actually take into consideration. For our do no harm principle is that when we come in contact with the beneficiaries and our staff members, as a result of the work that we are doing, we ensure that they are safe, they have confidence in what we are doing, and the likes. So we do them no harm. The first thing we have to do is to assess the risk that the project is carrying. Have we done our risk assessment? What are the mitigation strategies we have put in place? Have we mapped out the service providers? Peradventure, if we have an incident of safeguarding, we cannot rule it out. It's inevitable. Even if we have all our policies in place, we have all the structures in place, there must be people who can flout away the policy. Because we know that we are humans and this is possible, we need to have a strong structure in place for survival-centered approach. So if we are implementing this project, we want to bring it to your attention that we should not do no harm. We have a principle of do no harm to prevent any breaches of safeguarding caused by you, the partner we are working with, and as the consortium as a whole. So we need to do our assessment. Yeah, applying this the do no harm is like we bring benefits to us. We say that we are accountable to the people that we are serving. We are accountable to our staff members for the actions. For our own action, we must be accountable. So to be on the safer side is to put all mitigating strategies in place to see that we foresee the risk that is in front of us. How can we mitigate it at an early stage so that it will not have a spillover on the people that we are helping? These are vulnerable people, the girls and the women and girls that we are serving. So we really need to ensure that we do no harm as a result of our contact with them. So that is why we as a consultant, we as partners, FCDO, we really take into cognizance our principle of do no harm and the zero tolerance. We cannot bend it for any person. So if we are selected, then we have to do the means of verification. That is, we vet your policy in the due diligence. We vet it thoroughly to see that your policy is in alignment with the requirements we are asking for, wherein you have your time definitions, you have the statement of zero tolerance being embedded in the policy. However, some safeguarding policies are being embedded in other policies within the organizations. For example, it can be your HR policy, it can be your child protection policy. But that's not a big deal. We are not frowning at it. But what we stand for is to have a strong commitment to zero tolerance. We don't tolerate it. We say no to it. We frown at it. We raise an eyebrow against such behaviors because we don't want our good work to fall down the drain. So if we are working with you as a partner, you really need to uphold the zero tolerance. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Teresa. Okay, I was gonna tell you we need to move forward so that we can give people time for questions. All right, Albanas, is that the final screen? Can we move to the... Yeah, yes, thank you. So thank you so much for the colleagues who have taken through those slides. I can see there's been a lot of questions and some we are attempting to answer as we go along. I saw there were people who were putting questions in the chat, and we would request that you put them in the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of your Zoom, so that then we can track all of them on one page. Otherwise, it's difficult to monitor both channels. I want to now open it to questions. I know there are some we have attempted to answer online. There are others that probably people want to ask, they haven't put them online. And so I would want to open this up to people and give people an opportunity to be able to ask questions. So if you have a question, can you put your hand up and we will unmute yourself. Becky, I don't know whether people can unmute themselves or you have to unmute them.
I can unmute people. So
okay.
We'll go first to, I can see Yojana has their hand up. I'll unmute you now. Please do ask your question. You might also have to unmute yourself. Georgiana?
Jana, can you unmute yourself also? Wow, is it? Yeah, there. I think you've unmuted yourself successfully, so go ahead.
I don't think I have question. Thank
Oh,
you.
Okay,
oh, your
please,
hand is
please
up.
put your hand down and we'll move on. Thank you. So next up, we've got Ugochi. I'll unmute you. Please unmute yourself as well and ask your question.
Right, thank you so much. I think I just have a couple of questions. First, my name is Gucci. I live in Nigeria, and for the past 2 weeks, we've had such a challenge just trying to access the link. I dropped it in the question. I just tried it again. I don't know if it's my browser. I tried on Google Chrome. I tried on Mozilla Firefox. I've had a couple of colleagues try as well. It just keeps saying this website cannot be reached. So that's a whole challenge. I had to use a friend in the UK to get the information notes and then sign up for this information session. So that's one. Two, I would really like if, I know they said this was going to be shared to us, but I think after going through the information notes, I want to ask if an intervention can cut across the 3 stages of preventing violence. I know that if you go through it, there's the primary stage, secondary stage, and tertiary stage. Can, let's say an intervention we're writing a concept notes, can it cut across maybe primary and secondary or secondary and tertiary? Yeah, those are my questions.
Becky, how do you want us to do this? I respond or you take a few in a row? I can go.
I think, yeah, respond because they might all be quite different. Yeah, so maybe if you respond to
Okay.
them.
So I'll answer the last one and Teresa will come in, my colleague, on the registration. So as to whether, and apologies, you've had challenges with logging in. A few people have heard, but we haven't heard the issue of people not being able to access the site. So in terms of the second question that you asked, whether you people can apply or with an intervention that cuts through the continuum of the types of violence, absolutely. We are a holistic program, and although we have a very strong focus on prevention approaches, we also acknowledge that it would be unethical to just do prevention without response, and therefore we would look at supporting holistic interventions that work at the continuum of primary, secondary, and tertiary prevention. As long as then you don't then just pick one component and leave out the other. So we would be able to do that. Teresa, over to you on the registration.
Thank you so much, Anne. Please just send us an email to the whatworks2info email will be the issue. This might be happening because you have registered before. We've received a number of questions around that. So if you have registered before, that means your organization details are already in our system and you are trying to register with a different email, and that creates an error message. So please reach out to us, send us an email and a screenshot of the message you are getting, and then we will try to sort that for you within the 2 working days. Thank you.
And we can paste the email on the Q&A channel. So.
Okay, thank you. So I think I would rephrase. It's not, so I can't even have access to the website or the link. It's not opening. So it's not even a registration thing. It's to access the information, the website. So I know that there's the WhatWorks application grants website. I've used Google Chrome, I've used Mozilla Firefox. I have a couple of colleagues in the office as well. We're all in Nigeria. It's not accessing, it just keeps buffering since last week. Even from the organization's Twitter handle, there are a couple of comments saying the link is not working. On LinkedIn, still the same thing. I think from Nigeria saying the link is not working.
You mean the link to register?
No. The link to access the website, like I'm coming, let me just read it out. The
Okay.
HTTPS WhatWorks2 website to access the grants. I think somebody replied, I asked the question, the Q&A, somebody replied and sent me a link. https://preventviolence.org. Apply for
I
a
just
grant. It
pasted
just
on the
takes 1 click.
chat, so if you could try to open.
Okay, I'll try
If
this
not,
now.
we might have some restrictions around that, and then we'll need to look into that if that
Okay.
is the issue. But in the
All right.
meantime, and if you're interested in applying, please just send us an email and we can send you an offline application form. We are really trying to limit the number of application forms to be submitted
Okay.
offline. But if the issue keeps recurring for you, then we will look into that. But please, I'll also paste the link to the email on the chat. Yeah, please reach out to us. Thank you.
Right, sure. Thank you.
Becky, will you take a few, or would we, yeah, if there are no hands, could we look at the ones on the chat and start going down the list?
There's quite a few hands, but
Okay, go ahead. Go
yeah.
then.
So next up, Delilah, I'll allow you to talk. Please do unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you so much. I want just to ask if you can just re-explain the impact concept, because I didn't get it well. Thank you.
Leah? Leah, are you there?
Yes, sorry, I'm here. Okay, I'm going to explain NPAC. So NPAC is basically a charge which will be on your budget to cater for your non-project attributable costs. So these are overhead costs that are not attributable to the project. For example, you could have staff that work possibly in back-end finance. You do have like a few people working directly on the project, but you do have others who support not just this particular project, but this and other projects within your organization. There could be other costs such as premises or space. There could be equipment that is shared across your organization. Administration and support costs, like maybe security, all those are indirect costs for your organization. And therefore, you would want to charge a portion of those costs to this project. So NPAC is what you use to determine how much of those costs you're going to charge to this project. So how you do that is to list those costs. And the best way to do this is to use your last 3 years of your audited accounts. And then you do what we call a rolling average, which is to take those costs and then divide by 3 so that you get an average. And then that average, you use it to determine the percentage in relation to your total indirect costs. Therefore, you come up with a percentage of, say, 12%, 10%, whatever it is based on that. And then now you will have in your budget a line which you're going to call NPAC. That NPAC is what you will be now applying that percentage to your total indirect cost and charging that amount as part of your project cost. So this NPAC is what helps you cater for such indirect costs. It also helps you because as we have discussed in eligible costs, you have seen things like bank charges are not eligible costs. Other things like insurance for the project itself or such, Forex, where you go through sometimes some exchange losses, all those are not eligible costs. Therefore, having this NPAC line helps you as an organization so that you're able to cater for such costs. I hope that's clearer.
Thank you so much. It is very much clear now. I just want to ask one more question. I see that there is a rate about monitoring and evaluation costs, like 10%, but there is no rate for activity or staff costs. Do we need to have a limitation, or we just propose a budget regarding our activity proposed? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll take that too. And yes, so for your project activities, we are aiming to not be prescriptive. So we are giving you a free hand in terms of determining what are the interventions you're carrying out, what are the resultant activities to achieve those interventions. And based on that, you do the costing. So you're the one who will determine how much will these activities cost. So that is why we do not have any percentage or threshold related to your project activities or your resourcing costs costs. But of course, it's supposed to be a good balance. A good budget will have a good balance of what are your staffing costs. For example, you shouldn't have a project where 80% of your costs are going to staffing costs. So you will aim to have a good balance of that. The other thing about M&E and advocacy costs, and the reason why we are ring fencing those amounts, because we have seen from experience that these are a lot of times they are forgotten and therefore they are not budgeted for. So you end up with a budget that does not have costs to carry out M&E activities. A budget does not have a line to cover for your advocacy costs. And once in a while, if you're implementing this project, FCDO will have activities or rather things planned, and you will be required, for example, to come and do a presentation on your project, or maybe to just give evidence of how the implementation is going, and you will not have a budget to cover that. So from experience, we have seen that it is important that we put aside some funds so that we are able to carry out such activities. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Back to you, Becky.
Thanks, Leah. Okay, next we've got Vinaha. I'm going to unmute you. Please do ask your question.
Hi, thank you. I'm audible. Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
Great. I was asking that we currently have a program that is being scaled, but the center of that program is not violence against women, but it does engage adolescent girls and their mothers and the community with it. And there is also an upcoming project. So I basically wanted to ask, since this is going to be a testable intervention, is it possible to use existing geographies and existing project infrastructures to then work on this further? That was my
Yeah, so you have an existing project and you wonder whether you can use the existing structures to implement this one. Is that your
Yeah,
question?
yes. I mean, the interventions would definitely be new and different, but yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely up to you how you want to structure delivery for your program, as long as you will give us a very clear delivery chain map showing roles and responsibilities, who is going to be responsible for what actions. Yeah, you can. We don't like, it's up to an organization to determine how they want to implement, and then put that in the application for the concept notes, because there is a question in the concept notes of explaining your intervention and how you will deliver it.
Right, makes sense. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Bulanda, we're going to you now. Please do ask your question.
Hi everyone, Bulanda Nkwani here, based in Lusaka, Zambia, and I work for Digital Action. We are the current conveners of the Women's Rights Online Network, which is a network of about 16 gender justice orgs, gender justice and tech policy orgs that are working on issues of women's rights online. My question really is, first of all, you had mentioned something about advocacy, not unallowable costs when we were going over the budget. If you could please just clarify what you mean by that, because some interventions would obviously be advocacy based and they may have costs attached to them. Then the second question is, so with the nature of our network, where it's like 16 orgs in about 14 countries, and I read somewhere that multi-country projects are not allowable. So I'm wondering if that is eligible, and how would it work? For example, would it then mean that we get a sole applicant to then sub-grant to the rest of the network? So that's if we'd like to apply as a coalition or as a consortium. So yeah, thank you.
Sinead, do you want to take that one?
Oh, sorry, Anne, I'm very busy answering the questions on the
Okay.
What was the
All right, happy to. I can go ahead and do that. Okay. So first and foremost, I think I'm not sure where you read that advocacy is not an allowable cost. Probably we don't call it advocacy in the program, we call it external engagement and influencing. And in the budget guidance, there is provision for you to budget for up to 10% of the total budget to go towards advocacy costs. So yes, that would be eligible because we anticipate then that once we generate the evidence in these projects, then we want to be able to use it to influence certain actions, either by policymakers, we want to influence research, you want to influence the field of violence prevention, so it is allowable. The second part of your question is you're a network of 16 organizations. Really, it is up to you to decide how you want to do this. When you look at the funding amounts, of 500,000, really it's a decision about what can you deliver with that amount and what's the best way for you to be able to deliver. So if you think you can deliver an intervention multi-country with up to 500,000 pounds, really those are decisions you as a consortium would need to make. But on the other hand, we don't want to dictate to people what it is, but from what you describe, you're a network. You as a network will need to decide what is feasible within the available budget and then make judgment as to what components you want to apply for. Did I answer you, Bulanda?
Yes, you did. Thanks a lot.
And can I add something to what you have just said
Yes.
regarding advocacy? Because I know why that question is coming up. When you look at the ineligible cost, there is advocacy, but that is advocacy at bid stage. So for example, if you're carrying any activity, advocacy activity, such as maybe resource mobilization, trying to work with the policy, because maybe your interventions will be around that, as long as it's at bid stage, that is it's an ineligible cost at bid stage. But if this program is awarded, then advocacy, we have actually asked you to set aside 10% of your budget for that. I just wanted to clarify that point. Thank you.
Thanks both. Okay, we'll go to Purvi. Please unmute yourself and ask your question. I think we should be able to hear you now, Purvi. Please do ask your question. Purvi, can you hear us? Please ask your question now if you can. Okay, we'll move on. Please ask your question in the chat otherwise. We'll go to Abdulaliye. Please do come in. Sorry if I've said your name wrong, and ask your question.
Oui, est-ce que vous m'entendez? Bonjour.
Yes, we can hear you. And just a reminder for everyone, the question is going to be asked in French. If you can't understand French, please do switch to the English channel or your relevant channel. Thanks. Please go ahead.
Ok, merci bien. Donc, j'ai appris votre appel par un lien qui m'a été envoyé par une connaissance, un ami. Donc, j'ai fouillé là-dedans, j'ai pu accéder au site et j'ai suivi tout ce qu'on m'avait demandé de faire sur le site pour télécharger les documents, les thèmes de référence et autres. Mais ce que je ne vois pas, c'est que comment est-ce que nous allons soumettre notre note de concept, notre note conceptuelle. Ça, c'est une première question. La deuxième question, je me pose la question, est-ce que le Mali qui subit une crise prolongée intéresse votre appel? Voilà. Et peut-être en dernière question, est-ce que quelqu'un avait, une de vos présentatrices avait parlé de formulaire. Est-ce que vous pouvez nous envoyer le formulaire de notes conceptuelles pour que nous puissions en retour vous soumettre une demande. Merci.
Thank you. Teresa, do you want to answer this around how to the template and how to access the template?
Yes, sorry, I was busy answering a question, but yes. Let me just give me 1 second. Je m'excuse de ne pas parler bien le français. Je vais parler anglais. So to access the template, please go to the how to apply. So you go to our website and then there is a link, an active link there for you to register. Click on that link and just follow the instructions to register. After you register, you will then see the page where you will have access to the funding, this funding opportunity, and then you can start your concept note. If for any reason you need to log out, then please use this link and I will paste it again in the chat to log back in. If for any reason you are unable to either register or to either log in, then please do write to us to the whatworks2 info email. I've pasted that on the chat. I hope that is helpful. And we do have a number of documents translated into French to support the applicants from Francophone countries and also in Arabic. So please do look for those documents that are both on the website and also they are on the resources page of the grants portal. Just follow the link and then it will take you to a folder where all the documents are saved for your reference. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. And there was a second part of the question about whether Mali is an eligible country to apply for a grant.
Yes, it is. It is on the list of the eligible countries and also paste the link on the chat. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Teresa.
Hey, team, just because there's so many questions about how we define WROs and WLOs, do you think we could potentially answer a few questions in one with tackling that?
Yes, I thought Sinead shared that in her slides. Sinead, do you want to come in here with?
Yeah, I think there's still some confusion around it with lots of questions in the chat.
Sinead. Sinead, are you there? So I can go. Yes. So who is eligible to apply for this innovation grant? At What Works 2, one of the outcome areas is that we seek to achieve in our theory of change is support to women's rights organizations as essential actors in the ecosystem of violence against women prevention. And so the innovation grants are reserved for women's rights organizations or women-led organizations. And we define this as organizations with the majority of women at the governance level, that is at the board level, also at the leadership level. And so, and majority is you have up to 60% of women in those leadership positions. So those would be the applicants. They can decide to apply either on their own or they can decide to apply in partnership with other organizations. So for instance, if a women's rights organization decides we want to apply for this, but we think we want to also partner with a media organization or partner with an organization that does work around climate, then they can have that conversation and apply. But the lead applicant and the lead recipient of the funds would be the women's rights organization, and then they would obviously submit the ways in which they will flow the funding amongst the consortium partners. I hope that clarifies that question. And closely tied to that, I see someone has asked what's the minimum number in a consortia. Again, we don't dictate that to applicants. You decide if you want to apply in consortia with a women's rights organization in the lead. You discuss and decide how many people you want to bring into the partnership in making this application. And again, how you will share roles and responsibilities, because we will require you to submit a delivery chain map. And we have pasted the definition of women's rights organizations. I hope that answers a number of the questions around women's rights. And thanks, Claudia, for catching that. Okay.
Thanks. I'll go back to the hands because I think the questions in the Q&A are being answered by people in writing. So we'll keep taking verbal questions. So next, I'll go to Lem. Please do ask your question now. If you're there, Lem, I'm unmuting you, but I think you also need to unmute yourself to ask your question.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we've got you.
Okay. There were two people asking similar questions, Thomas and Mahari. There's some answers posted, but I kind of want a little more clarification. Our innovation involves an NGO and a partnership with an agribusiness to end slavery of girls and women that are currently being sold for cattle. But there has been some progress and agreements to basically create wells for the girls because they are sold for food security, and basically make the girl be the food provider and wells owner, so the father or her brother, whoever inherits her, doesn't sell her to other communities. So we have some progress going on, but we need to invest in the area to buy solar pumps, build water catchments, and provide seedlings. So at the end of the project, if the assets are going back to FCDO, then the project is not sustainable. Like, how do you return back solar water pumps? How do you return maybe a tractor or the seedlings? So the project seems to lack some clarification, or maybe we don't quite understand what this project is exactly for. So if you could clarify on this.
Leah, do you want to come in on the assets and what the policy of FCDO on assets is?
Yes, thank you. So when it comes to assets, the FCDO maintains ownership. The FCDO maintains ownership of the project assets. And then towards the end of the grant, a determination is made, and the decision is at the sole discretion of FCDO. So we should not make assumptions that the assets will remain with the lead host or the implementer, because that decision will be arrived at towards the end of the grant. So as long as the assets have been financed by FCDO, through this project, that ownership remains with FCDO. They defined assets as value, anything of value of more than £500, or even smaller items like mobile phones, which when grouped together have a value of £500 or more. And then if they have a life of more than 1 year, they are also classified as assets. So that's the guidance on assets. Thank you.
So really, Lem, you will have to make a decision as a program, as a project, whether that's it's a risk you want to take by applying, and then having that conversation if you are selected towards the end of the program, of the project.
So I think we'll still take the chance, but it is not like items that are luxury or anything. Would be okay if they are phones or computers or vehicles, but solar pumps and building something and providing seed, even the tree is an asset. Let's say if you provide a seedling for a tree, that's still an asset. So I think maybe we'll take a chance, but I'll discuss with my colleague before we make a decision.
Yeah, okay. And again, the guidance is worth over £500. So really, yeah. Next question, Becky. How are we doing with time?
Thanks, Lem. We're doing okay for time. I'll go to the next one. I'll go to Arifa. Please do unmute yourself and ask your question.
Arif, are you able to unmute yourself? I don't know. They seem to be struggling, Becky.
Yeah, we'll move to the next. Please do ask your question in the chat. Otherwise, I'll go to Jihan. Please do ask your question.
Jihan? Yep, they've unmuted.
Good evening.
Hi, Jihan. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I just want to ask about the duration of the concept. The duration of the evaluation, please. Yes. For the concept.
Okay. So Jihan,
And
if I understand your question,
yes,
you're
I have
breaking
another
up,
question,
Jihan.
please.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead and ask. Can we answer both?
Could you please inform us about the starting working of our project and how we can execute our project?
Yeah, did you hear the second question, Becky? She's breaking
When
off.
we can execute our project.
Okay, when you timelines, the timelines. Okay, so the deadline for submission of concept notes is December 6th.
Yes, started working on our project.
That's what I'm explaining.
I think Jihan is asking around the grant duration and the approximate start date, which we think would be from October 2025 for 3 years.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking us, Jihan? And did you also ask about the evaluation start date?
Yes, I asked about that, about the duration of our project and how we can execute our working on our project and executive project.
Yes, so it would be 3 years, up to 3 years, and we anticipate that the approximate start date is from October 2025. And I think you also asked about the evaluation, and that would also start then. You would be working with our colleagues in the research consortium.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jihan. Okay, I'll go back to Arifa because I think you've unmuted now. Arifa, please do ask your question if you're there. No. Okay, we can't seem to hear you, Arifa, but please ask your question in the chat if you in the Q&A if you're there. Okay, let's go to Hannah. Hannah, please do ask your question. I'm unmuting you now.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Hannah, we've got you.
Hi, I will try to speak in English. So we are, I'm from an organization who work for advocacy and for human rights, for women rights in Tunisia. And my question is, are the project that we applied, the project will be focused on sustainability? For example, like a cooperation for women or a literacy center, because we are in a marginalized community. So for this, I ask this question.
So if I understand Hannah correctly, she wants to know whether they can do literacy projects with this funding.
Yes, yes.
Well, as you saw in our presentation, we are looking at 3 thematic areas, which is working in conflict, in protracted crises, issues of climate change and violence against women, issues of technology facilitated GBV. And so depending on how you want your intervention to be, we wouldn't fund you to do literacy projects only. But if your model is integrating that to prevent violence against women, then you can apply. You just need to decide, yeah, you can put in a concept and then it will be reviewed and we will know whether it qualifies or not. But those are the 3 thematic areas we are encouraging applications in.
Bon, je vais expliquer more, but now in French. Bon, notre
Okay.
organisation travaille sur la violence sur les femmes et la lutte contre la violence. Aussi, nous travaillons pour le changement climatique aussi et la masculinité positive. Aussi, nous travaillons sur les femmes agricoles. Mon question ici, est-ce qu'on peut travailler maintenant sur un plan de durabilité pour le projet qu'on va l'écrire? Est-ce qu'on a obligé de travailler une méthodologie de durabilité ou bien non?
It has to relate to the core parts of that project around violence prevention. If they work on violence against women prevention, then it should be possible to apply, and if they are women's rights organization. I hope that's clear.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll move to, there's still quite a few hands and we've got half an hour left, so I'll keep going. I'll move to Haroon. Please do ask your question.
Okay, hello everyone. My question is regarding the capital cost. The question is for Leah. So can you give us some examples of that?
Claire, over to you on
Yes.
capital costs.
Yes, some of the examples you can think of capital include laptops. There could be furniture, cars, if they are there, motorbikes, such. Anything with a shelf life of over 1 year, value is over £500, or even lesser items like mobile phones, those are all capital expenditure cost. So if there are smaller items of lower value, but when grouped together, the value is five. For example, if you were to purchase 5 mobile phones and the value is £500, then those are classified as capital costs or assets. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Haroon. Okay, I'll go to Holly Morton. Please do go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. Hi. I put it in the chat, but I haven't got a response yet. It was just to find out how much does the track record within the PhD space matter for the organizations that are putting through the concept notes?
Track record in GBV implementation, yes?
Yes.
Holly? So really, yeah. So part of the concept note and submissions we request you submit together with the concept note is your budget, audited account. If you're selected and we go to the next stage, then you have to submit audited accounts, and they have to be at least 3 years of audited accounts, which then means you have to have been in operation working on this issue and for at least 3 years. And so those are some of the ways in which we will look at that. Also, in the template for the concept note, we ask you to share your past experience implementing VOG prevention projects. And so you will have an opportunity to articulate that. And then the reviewers will base that in assessing the application, the concept note that you submit. I hope that is clear.
Just one clarifying question there. I get the audited documents for the 3-year period and all of that, but my question is just mainly about experience within the SGBV space. Does that have to be within 3 years, or can you be implementing other projects and now probably have 1 or 2 years experience within implementing preventative measures within the SGBV space?
Well, it depends on how you respond to the question on track record, because we ask you in the concept note application to tell us how your experience is and to even share like examples of what you have done on GBV. And so that's a question of that will be subject by the reviewers to look at and make a determination.
Perfect. Thanks so very much.
Thanks, Holly. Okay, we'll go to Esther. Please ask your question.
Yes, thank you. My name is Esther Corey from Parenting Network Worldwide in Sierra Leone. And I know that we're talking about violence against girls and women. We create awareness also for the perpetrator of the violence. I remember going to a school, a child was beaten because they were doing question and answer. So the child was beaten by the man, by the teacher, and the teacher is now a woman. So we take the approach holistically on the family level, and then even trying to really create awareness to the men to see the danger of creating violence. So not only the girls and the men and the women, we also engage the men that are perpetrating the violence. So just wanted to see if we could also apply for this.
Okay, Esther, so thank you for your question. We have funded, as I say, this is the second window. Window 1, we have funded some projects that seek to address violence in education institutions. And obviously that is cross-cutting. So We leave you to make a determination whether you want to apply. And once you apply again, we shall review. We have funded models that focus on families, couples, parenting programs that all seek to address norm change, shifting norms that sort of propagate and perpetuate violence. So it's up to you to make that determination whether you want to apply, and then our reviewers will review that the concept note in terms of what you propose to do and determine whether it qualifies and fits the criteria.
Thank you.
Thanks, Esther. Okay, I'll go to the next hand is just called Program Coordinator. I don't have a name, so I've just asked you to unmute. Please, please do ask your question now.
Thank you so much. Yes, I have two questions actually. The first one is the part that was shared by Dima on the M&E requirements. It was shared a bit fast because she mentioned like we have to tackle measurable reduction in VOG and change in practice or policy, and something about recognition of who that I missed. So just on this point. And the second question is, can Syrian organizations working on the Syrian context but registered in the UK apply? Thank you so much.
I will attempt the last one as Ndima get ready to answer the first one. So when you say registered in the UK, do you want to do work in the UK?
Basically, we're registered in the UK, but we work, for example, we offer remote active, we do all our work remotely. We do not have staff inside Syria for safety, but we have local partners that we work with.
Then the local partners would need to be the ones to apply.
I see. Okay. Thank you so much.
Dima, do you want to speak to the second point around M&E?
Yes, I'm happy, but I couldn't hear the full answer. So if you just let me know, what is it?
Thank you. Yes, there was mention something about the M&E requirements, and you mentioned like we need a measurable reduction in violence. We need to see a change in practice or policy, and there was a third part about who, recognition of who, that I missed. So I just wanted to see
Women
what
rights
that
organization.
women. Okay, you women human rights organizations. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
your proposal should tackle at least two of these outcome areas.
Exactly. All right. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll go to Kangai. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Bonjour.
Kangai, we can't hear you.
Hello, bonjour.
Yes, we've got you. Please go ahead.
Bonjour. Ok. Je voulais poser la question de savoir si mon organisation, par exemple, a 3 composantes et je suis la responsable de l'une des composantes qui fait la promotion de la santé de la reproduction, la planification familiale et la lutte contre les VBJ. Est-ce que dans ces cas, moi, je peux postuler au nom de mon organisation, mais surtout sur la question en lien, sur les questions en lien avec la santé de la reproduction et tout ce qui va avec, parce que les deux autres composantes traitent d'autres questions. Mais est-ce possible pour mon organisation de postuler? Ça, c'était la première question. Et la deuxième question, c'était de savoir est-ce qu'il y a une durée minimale d'exécution du texte? La durée maximale, c'est limité à 2 années ou pas? Alors, la deuxième question, c'est sur la durée. Est-ce possible de limiter notre projet à 2 ans au lieu de 3 ans, ou bien s'il faut forcément aller à 3 ans?
Are they done?
I think
Can go ahead.
I think so. Yeah, go ahead, Anne.
Okay, yes. So we talk about project duration of 3 years because, as we explained, there will be an evaluation and research component. So there will be a component of inception, implementation, and evaluation. And so we think that 2 years would not be sufficient to be able to do the intervention and the evaluation, that is the research to test the effectiveness of the intervention within 2 years. So we recommend highly that people make their projects 3 years. On the question on working on sexual reproductive health and rights and whether they can apply, again, that is a judgment call that the organization needs to make, whether any of the work they are doing fits within the criteria of the thematic areas that we will be funding. But if it's to provide family planning services, that would be a no. But if they are a sexual reproductive health organization that's working on violence against women and girls, and they think they have projects that they could apply to implement, that is fine, but not purely just family planning services. I hope the translator has translated that.
Yes, I'm sure she is. Okay.
Yeah. Can you, and there's some people who've answered, maybe they can lower their heads so that we know.
Yes, please do lower your hands if you've answered. I'll go to Patrice next. Please do unmute yourself and ask your question, Patrice.
Yeah, thank you. I put up a question on the chat section, but it has been answered, so it's a good I use this opportunity. So I would like to know if international NGOs that are part of the consortium that you mentioned can submit its audited financial reports for the past 3 years in support of a local partner that would be the lead, for the project.
Leah, do you want to come in or should I take it? Yeah, so the lead applicant is the one who will need to submit the audited accounts. So another organization cannot submit audited accounts on behalf of the lead applicant because we need to establish that the lead applicant has had experience managing funds of similar amounts. And even if it's not of similar amounts, whether they have the necessary systems and processes to manage those funds. So yeah, the lead applicant will need to be the one to submit their audited accounts.
At what, sorry, just as a follow-up, at what point do the capacity of the consortium of consortium partners come in? At what point do they submit their documents or their due diligence documents to show that they have the capacity to support the lead applicants in carrying out this project?
So the capacity assessment will be done only after. So you submit the concept note, we review it. If you pass the technical review stage, then we ask you to submit a full application. And once you submit a full application, then it's reviewed again. And once FCDO allows us to proceed with the partnership, that's when the capacity assessment process kicks in. So we will not engage in capacity assessment before and until we have approval to proceed to award.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That'll be all.
Becky, how many more can we take? Becky, are you there?
Sorry, I was muted. Are we going until 11:45 or until 12 for questions, Anne?
I believe we were going on until, yeah, in another 15 minutes. We only have 15 more minutes.
Okay, so maybe I'll take 2 or 3 more questions and then I think we'll have to wrap.
Yes.
I'll go to Mulu Tsehe. Please do ask your question now.
And ask someone to mute themselves.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. You have advised us to apply or to prepare our concept notes on 3 areas, priority areas. So my question is, can we prepare our proposals on the 3 areas? And can we able to work on the 3 areas? Or are we going to apply for only one priority areas? I asked this because we are network organizations and we have members throughout the country. So some of the women in some regions are affected more by for example, conflict, while the others are more affected by this climate change related risks. So we want to work on both the 3 areas, priority areas, as we have members in almost in most of the regions of the country. But what we want to know is, are we able to work like that or not? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Molusia. Again, you can apply to implement a project in any one of those 3 areas that we have identified. If you feel that you can apply to do all the areas, again, it boils down to a question of, is that possible to do all the 3 areas and do them well with the funding amounts available? So again, that's a decision that you as a network will need to make, whether you want to apply as a network or whether you want to let your individual members apply for each of those thematic areas, so that each one of them, if the one work that is affected by climate can apply from the climate, the one that's affected by crisis and then can apply on the conflict one. So it's a decision you have to make as a network about what is the best approach for you to do this. But applying for all the 3 areas might not be possible given the funding that is at hand. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to Isadora. Please do ask your question, Isadora.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we've got you.
Great. Yeah, I'm just asking because I've asked that question in the chat. So our intervention looks like providing some trainings in partnership with local organizations in the workplace, specifically in factories. So I was wondering if that, of course, covers one of the topics that is covered under this innovation grant, say if you imagine something around climate change, would the fact that the intervention is actually delivered within the workplace be eligible, or does it have to be within, like, delivered at the community level?
Thanks, Isadora. Yeah, we actually have funded a project in Window 1 around addressing sexual violence in the workplace. So the intervention doesn't necessarily have to be at the community level. And it also depends on what you define as community, because when you look at the workplace and labor unions, and those are also sort of different types of communities. So yes, I think you can apply to address your issues of violence against women in the workplace.
Great, thank you. And just a follow-up question. And then for the consortium, can it be only the women's rights organization that is leading the consortium together with one INGO? Like, can the consortium be just 2 organizations, basically?
Yeah, you can decide. Yeah, the women's rights organization needs to be in the lead for innovation applications, and then they can be in the lead with an INGO. Yeah.
Perfect.
And
thank you so much.
Thanks, Isadora. Okay. I can't see any more hands.
Sorry, Becky, there are 2 questions in Arabic on the chat, on the Q&A. Apologies for that. So I'll ask the interpreters to come in, please, and help us to with these questions. Thank you.
Do we have the Arabic interpreter? Becky, do we have the Arabic
We do, but I'm not
interpreter?
sure. I don't.
Can Dima, can you see the questions?
And I think they're not questions. I think they're comments about files that are not
Accessible.
not accessible, exactly. And I think I've replied to one of them. So I don't think there's specific questions for us to address in the live way.
Okay.
Okay, great. So we still have quite a few hands, but I think we're
muting.
We're coming to time. So I don't know if there's any final words you want to say, Anne, but we will be sharing an FAQs document as well. But I'll pass back to you, Anne. I think we're probably not able to take any more questions at this point. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much, Becky and colleagues, for being here. I want to thank everybody for making time to be with us in this webinar. It was, as I said in the beginning, more information sharing about the opportunity for you to apply. I know we probably might have some questions that we haven't managed to get to in the chat, and because this is has been recorded, I hope we managed to record, Becky. We should be able to share this recording and probably also add some questions, our responses to the questions that haven't been answered. We have a frequently asked questions document. Again, we can reshare the package of application of how to apply together with the frequently asked questions document that is translated in different languages. And so really mine is to thank you all for the interest, for your engagement. As you can see, we haven't been able to get through all the questions that were in the queue. And really, we look forward to receiving concept note applications from you and to engaging. Do not forget, if you are interested in the technical aspects of violence against women and girls programming, we have a second webinar that our technical leads and our research people will be responding to and engaging with you on, so that then you have an understanding of the kind of interventions and effective programming approaches on violence prevention. And then hopefully with your concept notes, you'll be able to move the field of violence against women prevention forward. So again, thank you to colleagues for being here, for fielding all the questions. And yeah, looking forward to reading your concept notes as we go along. So thank you.